What if I told you that in 1990, Canada was the most powerful nation on Earth? That our own maple leaf wearing super spy once took down a golden eyed war profiteer in a rocket fueled jungle brawl? Today we're diving deep into Captain Canuck number 4, the historic return of Canada's premier superhero. But this video isn't just about the comic's plot. This is the story behind the story, the wild production journey, the unsung Canadian talent like George Freeman and Claude Aubin, rare cameos, and how Comely Comics changed comic history with full-color indie publishing. From nostalgia to national pride, strap in because we're putting the spotlight back on Canada's original Caped Crusader. Happy Canada Day, let's dig in. Set in the not-too-distant future of 1990, where Canada is the world's most powerful country, Captain Canuck and his teammates in the Canadian International Security Organization, or CISO, save the world from emerging threats. Following up immediately from events of issue number 3, an injured Captain Canuck lays helpless in an ambulance as it races to parts unknown. His would-be doctor is in actuality a hired gun for the mysterious Mr. Gold. Canuck, accompanied by an innocent but brave nurse, manages to subdue his kidnappers and cause the ambulance to crash. But in his weakened state, Canuck is easily captured again and delivered to Mr. Gold, an evil war profiteer with a false eye and a plate in his head made of pure gold. With compatriots Redcoat and Quebec hard on his trail, Canuck and Nurse Laurie are put aboard a rocket ship for parts unknown. Days pass, and Captain Canuck awakens in a makeshift prison cell. Easily making his escape, Canuck finds himself in a small South American village, complete with an ancient temple. Finding and rescuing Nurse Laurie from an attacker provides Canuck with an opportunity. He steals a guard's flying patrol car and straps Laurie's would-be attacker to it, sending him off course and taking many other guards along with it. Meanwhile, he breaks into Mr. Gold's secret hideout in an attempt to destroy his weapons-making factory once and for all. After a harrowing battle that sees Canuck and Laurie facing automatic gunfire and flying ships filled with attackers, Canuck destroys the factory and Mr. Gold's nefarious empire along with it. With Canada and the world safe once again, Canuck decides to take the long way home via motorcycle to ease his mind and discover new adventures. This issue was written and edited by Comely Comics founder and Captain Canuck creator Richard Comely. This title was the first independently published comic book to be printed in full color. Comely intended his character to be based on Captain Canada, and the term Canuck was used as a positive slang for a Canadian. This issue was the start of the first revival of the title after a 4-year hiatus. By that time, Comely had created CKR Productions in Calgary and resumed publishing the series with himself as writer. Comely delegated business management, artwork, and coloring to other employees, positions he had originally held himself, in order to focus on improving the storyline. By issue 5, Comely served as editor-in-chief. After 13 issues in 1981, Comely left the production in order to return to freelance design. CKR Productions only released one additional issue of Captain Canuck before closing down for financial issues and abandoned the series. Speaking exclusively to Read the Freaking Comics, Comely discusses this time in his life. The artwork for Captain Canuck issue 4 was completed before we all moved to Carson, Alberta in August of 1976. We moved up to Calgary in February of 77. I rented a house for my family. George Freeman and Claude Aubin lived in the basement for about 3 months. Claude and I found jobs as commercial artists in Calgary, and George moved back to Winnipeg. I produced and sold 315 black and white full-size copies of issue 4 and found investors in 1978. We started publishing again in April of 1979. Issue number 4 was the first issue where George did all the penciling and most of the inking, and it was also the first edition to be printed at World Color Press in Sparta, Illinois. I did the writing and the lettering. All 3 of us did coloring, which we did by hand painting acetate overlays. Speaking of George Freeman, he was the penciler, co-inker, and colorist on this issue. This was his first comic book assignment. He would later work on titles such as DC's Green Lantern and Aquaman, plus Marvel's Jack of Hearts and The Avengers. He also drew a story in Batman Annual number 11, written by Alan Moore. In 1991, Freeman co-founded Digital Chameleon, a Winnipeg-based comics coloring and inking studio. Freeman was the 1996 Eisner Awards nominee for Best Colorist on Topps The X-Files comic. In 2010, Freeman was inducted into the Canadian Comic Book Creator Hall of Fame. The other co-inker and colorist to work on this issue was Jean-Claude Aubin. Born and raised in Ontario and Quebec, Aubin had a lifelong passion for comics. Finding his way out west to Winnipeg, he eventually started working for Richard Comely and moved out to Calgary with him. After Comely Comics, he moved on to DC, where his first published work was in 1993 on an issue of Green Lantern. He has also worked on titles like Katana and Aquaman, and for Marvel, he worked on Spectacular Spider-Man and Captain America. This issue was the first true appearance of Mr. Gold, seen only in silhouette in the previous issue, which was 4 years earlier. He would continue to be a foil for Captain Canuck for 3 more issues and 2 separate storylines. There were 3 men to take up the mantle of Captain Canuck. Since the first series was set in the future of 1990, and the others were under different publishers, the canonicity of the timeline is in question. However, in the publication's history of the character, Tom Evans was the first true Captain Canuck. Evans was a Canadian secret agent who gained superhuman strength from contact with extraterrestrials. This version ran for 14 issues, plus a summer special, concluding in early 1981. In 2004, the completed issue number 15, which was written and penciled by George Freeman and inked, lettered, and colored by Claude Aubin, was published as a limited edition by Cumley. The second Captain Canuck was Darren Oak. This incarnation came out in 1993 and was set in the present, which ironically takes place around the same time as the 1975 series. Darren Oak fought a global conspiracy to save the world. Unfortunately, this title lasted only 4 issues. The third incarnation, edited by Cumley but written and drawn by brothers Riel and Drew Langlois, appeared in 2004 under the banner of Cumley Comics. Entitled Captain Canuck Unholy War, this time RCMP Constable David Semple adopts the guise of Captain Canuck to take on a biker gang called the Unholy Avengers. Unholy War was slated to have a 3-issue miniseries, however the series came out with a 4th issue in 2007, which fully concluded the character. In 2013, Captain Canuck was reimagined for a 5-episode animated web series by Captain Canuck Inc. and Smiley Guy Studios. Chris Holden Reed voices the captain, and Paul Amos, his antagonist, Mr. Gold. This issue includes a mini-story introducing the world to Catman, a Cumley Comics creation. Catman is Jason Corey, who is rescued from certain death in the snowy Canadian North while on a hunt for Bigfoot. His rescuer turns out to be a benevolent alien with fabulous technology. However, this alien refuses to let Corey return home. Corey uses the alien technology to escape, which inadvertently gives him purple skin and increased speed and strength. Calling himself Catman, Corey vows to fight crime by first vindicating his father, who's been wrongfully accused and jailed. This issue also features a 1-page comic called The Canuck Kid. These original cartoons were created during the 1940s in Canada. After World War II, the publisher discontinued the series. Richard Cumley was able to secure the rights to print these previously unpublished 1-pagers by original author Edward Lechman. The premise of The Canuck Kid follows a young boy and his dog being displaced in time by Father Time himself. This particular 1-pager features our young hero witnessing the arrival of Jacques Cartier in Canada in July of 1534. On pure nostalgia and patriotism alone, this comic is worth its weight in gold. I picked up this issue at a garage sale and was really happy I held on to it all these years. The art in issue 4 is vastly superior compared to the first 2 issues, and the writing also shows a marked improvement. Freeman and St. Aubin take this character to another level with their professional interiors and the awesome cover. I am a firm believer that representation matters, and to have a bona fide Canadian hero battling out on Canadian soil really gives me a sense of pride. The character could have gone on to be a true comic book icon had Cumley and Company been able to manage both sides of the business and creative side of comic book publishing. While it is nice to see attempts at reboots and relaunches, I have my doubts about seeing the comic hit the mainstream anytime soon. Yes, as Canadians we have Wolverine, Deadpool, and Alpha Flight, but they're part of America's zeitgeist now. Captain Canuck was ours, and for a while there, he was wildly popular. Being a bit more rare due to the limited distribution, I have found some issues of various quality at a wide range of prices. I found an issue available on eBay for $8.89, abebooks.com has one on sale for $49.95, and comicbookrealm.com is selling one for $315. Cumley Comics and Captain Canuck are forever intertwined. The idea for a Canadian superhero came to Cumley while working at a sign shop alongside co-creator Ron Leishman in the early 70s. However, it was only a few years later that the idea finally took off. Cumley started seriously looking into what it would take to make Captain Canuck a reality. In 1974, he set up his own comic imprint, Cumley Comics, and started work on the first issue, which hit newsstands in April of 1975. Captain Canuck outsold all other comic books in Canada in 1975, with 170,000 copies initially sent to stores and newsstands in the United States and Canada. To give you a sense of scale, Canada at that time had a population of about 23 million, just about the total population of California that same year. The comic book industry was not very prominent in Canada in 1979. Many businesses felt that advertising on that platform was not profitable. As such, there are only a couple of genuine advertisements in this issue, and of the 2, only one is another Canadian company. The Auto Upholstery Institute was running an advertisement for their services and looking for future salesmen and women to join their ever-growing team out of Orange, California, just in case you wanted to add some shag carpet to your sweet van. Meanwhile, Maxwell J. Seeley was offering a comic book back issues delivery service out of his shop in Sherbrooke, Quebec, in Montreal. Aside from those two ads, Comely Comics was busy promoting Captain Canuck posters, buttons, visors, pens, and notepads. No doubt some of these are worth quite a bit of money today. This issue mentioned smog-ridden Sudbury, so I decided to find a comic shop in the Sudbury, Ontario region. I recommend you check out Comics North Hidden Level Games, located at 106 Elm Street in Greater Sudbury, Ontario, or check them out on Facebook at Comics North Hidden Level Games. And that's it for Captain Canuck number 4, a hidden gem of Canadian comic history and a major turning point for indie publishing in the 1970s. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button to show your support for Canadian heroes. Subscribe to Read the Freaking Comics for more forgotten classics, creator backstories, and full-on comic book nerdery. Got a favorite issue, series, or character you think deserves the spotlight? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. And hey, share this with a friend who still thinks superheroes only come out of New York City. Until next time, let's read the freaking comics together.